Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Nerdcast Recast. I'm the Dark Lord of Project Nerd Galo, and today I'm with.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Q. You probably know me best from, I don't know, High Five the Podcast, Project Unreal, The Last Word, all amazing things you can find on the Project Nerd Network.
And today we have a really special show for you guys because for the first time, we have a guest who's brought guests with him. So, Q, why don't you sponsor us up so as we can get rolling?
You got it. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Geek Garage. You're going to head on over to geekgarage.com to see some of the world's coolest geek and pop culture themed vehicles, as well as stay up to date on events and even register your nerdy car. That's geekgarage.com, geek-garage.com. Now let's get into the show.
Yeah, as you guys know, this the Nerdcast Recast is a show where we like to expose and cross-contaminate nerddoms, and today we're gonna delve into the nerddom of film, and we have a very special guest, Mr. David Phillips. David, how are you?
I'm good. How's it going, guys?
Everything's going great, and we're happy to have you here.
Great.
We're really excited about this, and like I mentioned, this is the first time that one of our guests has guests. So without further ado, let's have you introduce your guests today.
Well, I think it's important for everyone to know that when you shoot a movie, you almost become like one unit, that you start to like be very dependent on each other, and you kind of like the codependency is real. So there's no way that I could ever talk about this movie without having, first and foremost, the writer, director, and other producer, Scott Abramovitch, right next to me. I needed to have him here to tell you about this project we're doing. And
Welcome,
of course,
Scott.
What's going on, guys? Great to
Hey,
be
Scott,
here.
how's it going? Good to have you.
Thanks for letting me crash the party.
Anytime, brother, anytime.
And then, of course, my partner in crime on the film, executive producer Daniel Norris Webb, is in the house.
Hey
Hello,
guys, good to
Dan.
be here.
Hey, Dan,
man,
how are
we're
you? Good
so
to meet
jazzed
you.
have you.
Yeah, super formal with all three names, so
Real tight. Well,
All right, so let's
further.
jump into this. Let's jump into this. David, I was doing a little research on you, and it was a very interesting thing to know that you basically came up wanting to do this ever since you were young. In one way or another, the entertainment industry seemed to be where you wanted to be. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of people, you're raised with watching TV a lot, and when you're a creative, imaginative kid, and you're very expressive, and you like maybe attention a little too much, you kind of are drawn to this idea of playing pretend. Some of my fondest, earliest memories are playing pretend with my brother, with our Star Wars figures, or whatever it was. We would always invent scenarios and do things and talk about doing that. And then in high school, suddenly people are doing plays and doing that sort of thing, and that got me interested. And suddenly there's pretty girls in those plays and dancers, and you're doing musicals, and you're like, this is amazing. Oh my God. So when you graduate, you're like, well, I had done pretty well in high school, and I was like, well, what am I going to choose for the rest of my life? I'm 17 and have to make that choice in our society. And you're like, well, that was amazing. I really like doing that thing. So I'm going to keep going down that road and audition for, theater schools and stuff. And so then, I got into the one I'd wanted to with a scholarship. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a movie star. That's it. That's settled.
Nice.
And then you start doing that. And then, not to go through my entire life story, but it was all entertainment based. And so I did the acting thing for a while, and then thought I'd go to LA and started, I did a few movies, and it's tough sometimes as an actor because you don't have a lot of creative control, and sometimes those movies don't turn out the way you want, and sometimes you realize that maybe I want to be more involved in the projects I do. And so that's
sure.
I got an opportunity to start producing, and 14 films later, Eat Wheaties.
I love that. So how did you link up with Dan?
Oh, well, basically, it was Scott and Dan's project, and
Got it.
Scott had written, and there was in the early stages of doing this movie, and him and Dan were friends, and Dan is like a really resourceful type of guy who just picks up a phone and can do it all. And they, I not to mince words, but they wanted a producer that had done some things in LA that were close to the budget of what this was, and I got recommended from somebody that I'd worked with as a producer that was in LA, and then we had a meeting, which I think most of the time we talked about hockey.
Nice. Hockey brings you together.
It did.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how I met Scott in the first place. If you can see all the hockey gear behind me, there's it sticks right here. Yeah, I've played hockey my whole life, and it's a huge passion of mine. And same for Scott. And we actually play on a men's league hockey team together. So we just became friends first, and got to know each other on the ice, and having a few cold ones afterwards, and started sharing projects and scripts with one another, and found that we, we're on the same wavelength with most things, and we really saw eye to eye on stuff. And honestly, Scott gave me an incredible opportunity by believing in me and sharing this project with me, and letting me be a part of it. So
that's
really grateful.
awesome.
And yeah, it's really cool. He's the man. And and
no pressure, Scott, no pressure, but you better be the man in this conversation. Otherwise, now I have to ask, Scott, this is, if I read correctly, this is your directorial debut. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've written before and I've produced before. I've never done all three at the same time, which is a lot.
I was going to say, how does
thank
that
God for these
feel?
guys.
No
it was
pressure.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, making this movie the way that we did, which was on our own, with a low budget, with everyone calling in as many favors as they could. I think from a director, from a producer standpoint, it was certainly challenging, as all three of us, I'm sure, we've got our own stories of the different challenges that we had. But from a creative standpoint, it's amazing because you have nobody over you, and you really have the free reins to tell the story that you want to tell.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, when did you guys film this movie? Like, what year did this get filmed?
Oh, it's
man.
We shot it a couple of years ago already.
Yeah.
We were finished. We weren't quite finished post, but the movie was finished the week of the pandemic broke. We were planning the screening on March 27th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second week of March, we're like, maybe that's not going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
That's kind of what I was going to ask is, like, obviously the giant disease-ridden elephant in the room is that, I was going to ask, how did COVID, or how has the pandemic kind of affected your release strategy and, the wrapping of the film and everything?
Well, we were planning on screening for buyers that last week in March. So it slowed down getting a distributor. We had a couple of opportunities before making the film with distributors, which the last film that I wrote and produced was something that we had already set up distribution before. And I Dave's done sort of both versions of that, where you have a distributor and set up and you don't some other times. So there's different challenges along the way. I think for us, the hardest thing was that our post-production team, which was being done in Montreal, was thinned down to really one guy. So
yeah,
Tony,
that is quite thin
shout out
down.
Tony Malikakis.
Yeah.
he had a lot on his plate.
He's really carrying it.
Yeah. So I think that was the hardest thing, and then just finding the right distributor to release this movie the way that we hoped we would get released, and I think it took longer than we had probably liked, but we landed with the right fit. So
sure.
That's what we're excited for. We're excited that we just saw kind of the trailer, and the trailer looks great, and the artwork is looking great. Like we're in good hands. So that's That's where we're
fantastic.
It's worth the wait.
That's one of the silver linings though of this disease-ridden elephant, to quote you, thank you. Was the fact that once we knew we were going to be on hold for doing a screening and getting it out there, it did enable us to do some film festivals where we were able to see audience reactions, get some really great reviews, because by the time we were at the film festivals, this is a comedy and the jokes aren't really funny anymore to us. We've seen them 100 times and you know what's coming and whatever. So to start getting some of these reviews in from these film festivals that were so positive and supportive, kind of like, reignited us a lot. And then, not to brag, but we won some awards, which was kind of nice too. And so,
no big deal. Just
award-winning
film we have here.
A couple of movies,
comedy,
a couple of awards, but yeah,
so it was comedy good.
Awesome.
I think that was, exactly. So that was, obviously it kind of sucked because we were put on hold, and we still had things called deliverables that we have to give to our distributor. And like Scott said, we were just down to Tony, he's a monster when it came to doing all that work. But we did get to go to some, Zoom film festivals.
Go to.
That's been a weird thing. We did some interviews earlier in the middle of last year now, of a bunch of film festivals going full digital, and it was so interesting talking to creators and producers and directors and actors that were involved in these films, because they're used to, if you're doing the film festival circuit, you more often than not get to be there with your film, talking to people, sitting in the audience, getting those reactions firsthand. And digital kind of like switches it up. It throws a wrench in it because, yes, you're hearing these things afterwards, but you're not necessarily in a screening with people going, did that joke land? Did that joke land? No, it didn't. Okay. So I find that super interesting, but I've heard kind of that it was kind of a almost like a freeing experience from multiple people. I've kind of heard that they dig having that instant kind of reaction, but they also like the opportunity that their films have played more places this way than it normally would have. And it kind of sounds like you guys had an opportunity to do some festivals that may have not originally been in the cards right away. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Well, the thing is, we weren't even really focused on a film festival run. We were kind of focused on our distribution. And so when that was kind of like, because things got so crazy and people weren't sure what was going to happen, our sales rep was just like, well, wait a sec, we should hang on to this for a second. Like, let's not make any rash decisions, because at the time you had tons of tentpole movies just being, sold to to the streaming services and that sort of thing. And so we're like, okay, well, maybe just hold off a second, see where this all lands. And also how long, it's tough to think about now, but at the time we thought maybe the pandemic's going to last a couple of weeks, a month, like
for sure. Everything will be back to normal.
So naive. So, we kind of just held on to it, and then a little longer. And then we were like, well, we got these film festival deadlines coming up. Should we do a few of these just to kind of to see it? I will say it's tough because like we have a finished film and we have never seen it with an audience yet.
Especially comedy.
Like
you were saying, seeing those laughs and knowing, and it was wonderful we got extraordinary reviews, and we're so grateful for that. But like you said, it's a totally different experience. We were in some extraordinary festivals and they all did such a great job trying to provide everything that they possibly could, but like we've all experienced with everything in the last year or so, that is just extremely diminished in this world we're in now. So I think we did a really good way of navigating it, and we really maximized what we were able to do, but there's only so much you can do with everything these days.
I totally respect.
And like, let's be honest. People go to film festivals to have some drinks and see a city they've never been in for the first time and meet other filmmakers. Like, my Project Nerd inauguration was the Tallgrass Festival, and like, meeting you guys there and having a good time a few years ago. And so like not having that and just being a square and wearing your pajama bottoms, sure, it's comfortable, but but it's
a totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
To know that we could have been in Whistler than in Maui, and we're not either place. We're just,
right.
The Maui
so
Film
true.
Festival probably would have looked better from the beach than it did on.
For sure, definitely. I mean, well, you can definitely pipe in Zoom backgrounds, so you could kind of feel looking at yourself that you're at the beach, but you know where you are really.
So yeah, that brings up an interesting thing that I guess all three of you finally get to experience together, even though you've done different projects and been involved in different things, is that whole now we're wrapped and we're audienceless. How do we, I mean, you guys are almost pioneers in this with a lot of other people that have, wrapped around the same time and we're looking to launch, and now they're kind of like, I mean, that takes a lot of trust in each other and in what's out in your product. So how do you guys individually, and as a group, how do you guys get yourselves through this? Because it's got to be pretty anxiety ridden to have something completely ready, and the one thing that you had hoped for you don't have, which is a live audience, or just a theater, a launch or something, because of the pandemic. So how do you guys kind of keep going and keep yourselves going and keep each of you individually going through this process?
Well, I think the good thing about where we were at when the pandemic started was that we were at the place where we were confident that the movie was working. I think if this had happened at the beginning of the editing process, where we had some challenges story-wise, I think it would have been a lot harder. We were able to screen rough cuts along the way of the editing process that sort of, I mean, the challenges of telling this structural story, we kind of knew what they were, and then in the editing process we ironed them out as best as we could. But I think we knew the movie was working in March of before, when everything kind of hit the fan. And we were excited we were actually, I think the anxiety kicked in when we realized, wait a second, we're not getting the audience of buyers that we thought we were going to get, because sure. we were suddenly competing with with these $75 million movies that were being dumped by the studios.
Sure. Now, what is, I know you guys said that you have a release upcoming, right? Is that okay? Can we talk about that? Okay.
Absolutely. April 30th.
What's the plan then? What's the distribution model now? How can people find the film?
So the movie is going to be out April 30th, day and date, theatrically, and on all the VOD platforms.
Oh, awesome!
Our distributor is Screen Media. They're my chicken soup for the soul. They did a great job releasing a movie called The Outpost this summer. I don't know if you saw that. And Willy's Wonderland. Willy's Wonderland's out now.
Nicolas Cage vehicle.
Yes. So that's
finally good to see Nick get some attention. It's finally good to see.
It's been years of him just wallowing in like nobody. Who's Nicolas Cage, right? Like who knows what's going on?
Have you guys seen that? I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard great things. And
I saw half of it. And that was not really because it wasn't good. It was more so that it was just kind of like, yeah, this is fun, but maybe in like bite-size bits. maybe. It's essentially like, if you're familiar with the video game Five Nights at Freddy's, it's essentially like Five Nights at Freddy's, but released by the Asylum. And so it's kind of Five Nights at Freddy's diet version, I guess.
Right.
Starring Nicolas Cage, who's amazing and goes like completely bananas through the entire movie. So that's
with
kind
no
of
dialogue with no dialogue from what I heard.
No, it's a lot of emoting, a lot of like eyes and like crazy faces, which is
sounds
arguably
fantastic.
maybe some of what Nick Cage does best. Crazy faces and eyes.
Originally we wanted Nick Cage for Eat Wheaties. That Scott wouldn't stop talking about getting Nick Cage for Eat Wheaties, but
yeah.
Well,
that would have been interesting.
I will say this. Speaking of your cast, though, I looked at this cast and you have a killer cast of comedy just geniuses assembled for this film. How in the world did you guys pull that together? Like, I know you had mentioned like we all pulled strings, but like these are some strings. Like I was looking through and I was like, I love this guy, I love this girl, these guys are awesome, this people are hilarious. So how did that come about?
I'm glad that you like them, because we literally got the first choices of pretty much every role we wanted. And I think a lot of that has to do with Tony. We were very lucky. You know, Tony's agent, Joe Yao at UTA, loved the script and championed us. And, you know, when Tony came on board, I think it allowed for everybody who was reading the script to read the best version of it. And it, you know, I literally picked my favorite people from my favorite things, for even the smallest of roles. You know, Sarah Goldberg from Barry and Hayden Sito from Edge of 17. You know, these are two. You know, Rizwan Manji, who's a close friend of mine. They were only with us for maybe 3-4 days. Lamorne Morris for a couple days.
I just finished New Girl, so I was like, what?
We need to
yeah, so we ran our luck down the line where, you know, let's see if Paul Walter Hauser will say yes. And he said yes, and it was like
yes.
So I think that from as a director, it allowed for a lot of ease in terms of you know, what we needed in the time we needed it, just because these guys are, you know, naturally so incredible.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd say that, you know, I know 9 times out of 10, getting people to become attached to a project relies a lot on the script. So that speaks a lot to your script, I think, with the people that you ended up with. But I did, and I can see behind you right there, I know your script is an adaptation of a novel, correct? So how did that come about?
Well, it started. It was called the Locklear Letters.
I feel like I need to also have it right here. You can't see it, but it's there.
Everyone get your copies.
Dan, you got yours? So
turn the page.
Michael Kuhn is the author of the Locklear Letters, which has now been re-released as Eat Wheaties.
Eat Wheaties. Nice. Yes. That's awesome.
There we go.
There we are, boys.
So yeah, it's this fantastic book that I read. A friend of mine, Evan Schenkman, who I went to law school with, actually, he was working at a law firm at a real job, as opposed to me, who's writing, and said, well, this guy that I work with wrote this book, and you know, you should check it out. So I went down to, at the time it was the Barnes and Noble in Santa Monica, and started reading this book and finished it in the Barnes and Noble. It's a pretty quick read in the best way.
I'm sure they were pissed about that. They're like, hey guy, this is not, you need to buy that. This is
Exactly. I sat down on the chair.
Hey guy.
They shouldn't have chairs in the Barnes and Nobles. I mean, I don't know if they do anymore.
They're like, remove all the chairs. This guy.
You took care of that, Scott. You took care of that.
Between
do
Starbucks
they even
and
have
Barnes
and Nobles anymore? Do they even have Barnes and Noble anymore?
There's a few.
And that was it. It's because of Scott reading books and finishing them before buying them.
Yeah. So I read this book and I loved it. I didn't quite see how it would work as a film, but I loved the read. And that was that. And then Michael wrote a sequel about, so it's Heather Locklear is the celebrity in the, I don't know if you know anything about the movie at all, but it's about a guy who went to college with somebody famous and reaches out to them. In the book, it's a letter. In the film, it's a social media post saying, you know, dear Heather, or in our case, Elizabeth Banks, you probably don't remember me. We went to college together. I dated your sorority sister, Tracy Swid, sophomore year, and just can't stop, you know, with the details of both his life and theirs that he knows so well. And his life kind of falls apart from there in a fun way, but in a way that suddenly when I read the sequel and reread the original a couple of years ago, it spoke to me differently. It was a story about a guy who was his own worst enemy. And I think we're living in times now where people who try to be funny and have good intentions sometimes can ruin their lives with one social media post.
Oh man, that's so real.
Yeah. And so
this very timely.
So this idea suddenly felt like a movie, 10 years after I think I read it the first time. and I had lunch with Michael. I emailed him. He was actually, he moved to a firm in Los Angeles, and I said, you know, you probably don't remember me. Well, he didn't remember me, but I don't know if you remember.
Dear Michael, you probably don't remember me. That sounds like the movie.
So I said, I don't know if you remember Evan, but I went to school with Evan. He told me about your book, and now, I read it and think, it could make a great film. What's up with the rights, kind of thing. And he wrote me back within minutes, like maybe 3 minutes later. I was like, is this guy going to put this into spam? And 3 minutes later, yeah, the rights are available. And, he watched a film that I wrote and produced that week and said, I loved your movie. Let's have lunch. So we met, and I pitched him on what the challenge of adapting this book is that it's told through letters. So it's only really the main character's voice. Sure. And because it was written, 15 years before, or 13 years before at the time, the idea of setting it currently was important to me. So I pitched him on this idea of, instead of using letters, to use social media and find an appropriate celebrity besides Heather Locklear that might resonate a little bit, with today's audiences. And he was like, yeah, I trust you,
That's awesome. That had to feel good. Like him just being like, yes, take my baby and make your baby. Like that's pretty awesome. And if I read correctly, so your star is Tony Hale. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. He's like a comedic genius. So I can only imagine his performance, and just based off of the character description and concept of the film, I don't think you could. I already am like, that seems like perfect casting. Like that makes sense. I totally understand.
I think all of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just to say, I'm building off that Tony just is the best too. He's the nicest, most genuine guy around. And when we were touching on the casting before, we had an amazing casting director, Lisa London, and UTA was a huge help, and all the talent agencies that helped us along the way. But it was a beautiful snowball effect with Tony, that everyone just respected him and his work and who he is as a person so much, that, especially because, like you said, he's the lead in this, and he hasn't done that a lot. And all the awards he's won and amazing shows he's been a part of, he's normally the supporting member. And this was, he was number one on the call sheet here. And I think everyone really wanted to help him and wanted to make sure that this movie was built around him really strongly, and that he was, as his first one, that he was at the top, that they were going to support him and make sure that the movie was good around him so that he couldn't fail. And it was really, really cool to see.
I love that. I love that so much. Now I have to ask, I know, Scott, you had mentioned that Michael, right, the author of the book, had written a sequel as well. Is there a chance that gets also adapted as a film? Is it too early to even ask about that?
It's so
David's like, really?
I think the story resolves itself, and the character's arc, I think, is a reflection of what I loved about both books. I think the sequel kind of continues the same sort of your own worst enemy and these words kind of coming back to haunt you idea. So I think if we were to make a sequel, I'm not sure it would be the same kind of structure as the sequel of the book is. So it's challenging, that it's like any film that it makes a sequel when there's an arc in the first film. It's like you have to find a way, and some can find it perfectly well, but I'd hate to tell a similar story of a guy who kind of is his own worst enemy twice, because I think what I really loved about this character, and I think this is something that Dan and Dave both connected to as we started working together, is that this is the kind of character who, it's not just a character in a film. I think there's people like Sid in all of our lives. And, particularly in my life, the ones who are like that are some of my closest friends and family members. So, and I think telling their story was what really made this something that I needed to do. And that's why, directing for the first time, it's a story that I really connected with, because, the people who you meet where they seem strange and weird.
Sure.
You know, if you let that impression be the thing that you stick with, well, those people, you know, you never get to know those people, and you also don't laugh with those people, you laugh at those people, and that's, I think that's the character that Tony, I think, has done so well in his shows. You laugh at him, you know, on Arrested Development and on Veep, and you know,
sure.
And I think this is a different character, because it's a character we're connecting with, and we're understanding why he's trying so hard to get people to connect with him and why he's failing. And I think the goal for telling the story was to find a way to make that character not the person who you're laughing at. And I think that was our biggest challenge. I think particularly in editing, because I think on the page there were some jokes that are at his expense that worked, that were funny, but suddenly you're laughing at him instead of connecting with him. And that was our biggest challenge, I think, in the, you know, first act, of trying to get us to follow this guy and be with him as he stumbles and as he puts his foot in his mouth, but never feel like we're laughing at him.
Sure. Now, you guys have, you know, David, you kind of mentioned like working with a team over the process of making a film kind of like bonds you all together. And is that something like, do you guys see yourselves moving, like once this film is done, looking for opportunities to work together again? Is that something, or, you know, does everybody kind of go off and do their own thing? Like, how do those brotherhoods stay intact? You know what I mean? How do those families stay intact?
It's a weird thing, because it's either one or the other. It's you know,
Sure.
you start off as buddies, and then by the end of it, you're like, wait a sec, you're really great. You're really great, but I can't work with you ever again. And you know, with these guys, you know, obviously I had just met them and got along really well, and then by the end of it, yeah, I mean, like it is that. And I think what ends up happening is that you look for opportunities to potentially work together. I mean, obviously that can't be your be all and end all, and we're all doing like separate type things, but at the same time, like, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to work with these guys again.
There's a chance to get the band back together again. Let's do it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's definitely on the table for. I don't want to speak for them. Maybe I'm the guy that they're all like.
Scott and Dan are like, we really like David, but we wish you hadn't have asked that question.
Definitely going to work with you again, Dave.
Yeah, the goal is that if the film connects with an audience, then hopefully we'll have those opportunities, whether it's a sequel or another project where we can choose the job. You know, there's times when the jobs choose you, and there's times when you choose the job. And if we could, you know, I think all of us would choose to work with each other in a heartbeat.
Nice. I think that's kind of a nice thing about what you guys are about this side of the backside of the film industry, you know, the behind the scenes side, is that nobody says, oh, these guys again. You know, as long as it's a good product and your cast is the one that's bringing it to the screen, they don't care who's, you know, they care and they value it, but it doesn't become played out, because, you know, these guys put together great products. So yes, it's awesome that they're directing and producing and doing all the things, you know, so I look forward to this movie. So I think with the relationship that you guys have, those opportunities would probably come a little easier, you know, because you're not just trying to feed, you know, the same actors doing different things over and over and over and over and over again. And you know, you guys seem like the personalities here seem to mesh really well. And you guys seem like very easygoing guys, and I think that's awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge, there's a reason why you see, you know, big time directors and, you know, Marty Scorsese hires the same people and wants the same actors around. You know, I mean, you spend a minimum of 14 up to 20 hours a day with each other for months on the end. And, you know, you turn into a family, and as we know how family goes, you're either really close or you don't want to be anywhere near that person, you know? So if you find a relationship that works and you guys are not only able to have fun while you're working, it's just, especially if you're trying to make a comedy and the goal is for everyone to go and be laughing and the mood is light, we're all supposed to be having a good time. It's really, really hard to do if everyone's miserable, you know? So if you're able to find a relationship with people that you can be excited to go to work and have a good time while you're there, I mean, you definitely want to run that back, because it just takes a huge, huge question mark out of the fact of like, are we going to get there? And people are going to be arguing and we're not going to be seeing eye to eye. And all of a sudden we've lost the first 3 hours of our day because no one can agree on something that doesn't even really matter. So if you know that that's never going to come up and you can just throw that out right away, it just makes your life so much easier, especially as a producer.
Sure.
You have a bazillion fires to put out and you're so many worries on every day. And if you know that like at least your friends are there and they all have your back, that's just endlessly valuable.
Sure.
I think the thing is, just to add a tiny bit, I think a lot of the times you get jaded in this industry because you don't have good experiences, and I think a lot of it comes down to benefit of the doubt, is that when you've worked with somebody and it goes well, I now give them the benefit of the doubt. Like if something doesn't go right, I know they're working their ass on it, and I don't feel like I have to be like, oh, here I go again, and I feel like that is what's so important sometimes, is that sort of thing, is that trust.
Sure. Totally understand. Now, I'm going to dust myself off here. You guys ready for the best segue you've ever heard? Hold on. Here we go.
Oh, hang on. Let me get comfortable.
All right, here we go. I got to crack my neck. All right, here we go. So the fact that the three of you came together and are releasing what is essentially a film baby during a pandemic. I myself had a baby during a pandemic, and it's weird. I know that there's another major life event happening during a pandemic. Dan, you're getting married soon. Boom! Segue.
Yeah.
I took it from the film to marriage. I'll be here all week, you guys. So thank you.
I'm gonna cry.
Thank you. I'll accept awards later. Now, Dan, I do have to ask. So, I mean, can I borrow that for this minute? I know that, releasing a film during all of this is a huge thing. And the fact that you're entertaining, planning a wedding and executing a wedding is also just a feat in itself. How has that been? Like, how's that experience? Clearly this has taken a lot of time, and I would imagine that is also a big time taker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wedding planning is crazy, but I think it's also, I do feel lucky that my older brother was supposed to get married last year. He had to postpone his wedding 3 times before ultimately canceling it. That just, and that they lost a bunch of security deposits and all that. My cousin also last year got married in her parents' backyard, with just 6 people. And, so, I was thinking about it before the whole pandemic happened about, popping a question, and actually had a ring for a little bit. And luckily, I didn't do it. And then the pandemic hit, and I openly had a conversation with Sarah. It was just like, hey, like, I have this ring, I want to do this, but like, it's not fair to either of us if I do this now. Like, we couldn't have even like gone out to dinner and had a glass of champagne or done anything. Like, we live in a 1-bedroom apartment, just outside Hollywood, and it's, everything. It was like a zombie movie, how everything was shut down and everything like that. So, I then unfortunately had a medical scare almost exactly a year ago now from an old hockey injury. I ended up getting a blood clot in my arm, and they had to,
oh my gosh,
I had to spend over a week in the hospital at peak pandemic to get the blood clot removed. And they ended up removing one of my ribs in my rib cage to make sure that the blood clot never happens again. So
well, I'm so glad you're okay. That's it. That's insane. On top of insanity, more insanity.
Yeah. So, and that just came out of nowhere. I was just cooking dinner, and I looked down, and my whole arm was just like twice the size and black and blue, and there was no pain. And I was like, that's not good. So
this is not normal.
We went in, and they were just like, I went in there immediately, like, okay, well, your fiance has to leave. You're going to be here, get 4 or 5 surgeries, and she can pick you up when it's all done, and, so that of course rearranges your way that you look at life, really. So then I came out of that, and I knew more than anything that I wanted to marry her, so that really reinforced everything even further. And so then, once I got out of there and I recovered, and we waited a little bit, and then just decided that I'm from Colorado. So we drove back to Colorado and just went camping in the middle, because it's literally all we could do was go camping outside, and did it there, and it was great. And so, I mean, honestly, now that the planning part, now that everything is starting to get back together, we sure has had lots of time this year to really look into everything that we wanted and everything like that. So hopefully, it's October 23rd is the wedding. So hopefully by then, everyone will have the opportunity to be vaccinated. And so, we're just going to say everyone's got to get that before they come. And so hopefully we should be in the clear by then. And it's very exciting. Hopefully I'll be able to cut this ridiculous hair that I've been growing for 2 years, and we can go back to normal life here. So
I love that. Now listen, I'm not trying to to preach to the choir here, and you guys are clearly the professionals, but I sense another movie just in that story alone. I feel like it took some turns. I feel emotionally invested. Things happened that I didn't expect. Ultimately, it all came out positive in the end.
I volunteer to play Dan's talking rib.
We couldn't think of better casting.
That's fantastic. That's great. Who plays Dan in this scenario? That's what I'm wondering.
Dan's gonna play him in a crazy turn. Dan will play himself.
Right. Wow. It's good. We'll save a bit of money there. I mean, that's
definitely. Well, he's gonna play himself playing Tony Hale playing himself. So it's actually like a really like layered performance. So Dan, we expect a lot out of you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's going to be very intense.
Sounds straightforward. Yeah, we're good.
I get it. I'm on it. I understand. Well, congratulations to you first and foremost. That's super exciting. We are incredibly glad that you're okay, and I'm sure your partners here are also incredibly glad that you came out of that okay. What are now that this movie, I mean, we're on the cusp of the film releasing, what are kind of next steps for the three of you, either together or individually? Like, what do you all have going on? You know, obviously, Dan, you're getting married, but like, what else do you guys have going on in the world, whether film related or not? Like, what's kind of new? What's happening?
I came back to Toronto to visit my family right before we were going to do that screening, and then I just am still up in here in Canada. So
I see.
Luckily,
so David is forever in Canada now. Got it.
Luckily, I was able to get a fantastic friend and actor to sublet my place in Los Angeles, so that's great. But I should probably get back down there eventually to get my life back,
sure,
and figure that out. But yeah, while I've been up here, I actually worked on a couple of little things, and then I've been developing projects and working with some other people about some potential things where there's some funding, they need maybe more funding.
Sure.
And then being up here has opened up experiences potentially because there's a lot of work up here and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those, we're on the precipice of Eat Wheaties coming out, and seeing how that flies and what opportunities that opens up for the films that we're, I don't mean to speak to them, but like for things that we're developing, as well as, you know, potential other things with each other.
Sure.
That's kind of how I feel where I'm at right now. Scott, over to you.
Take it away, Scott.
It's it's nice to finally be at the end of the road with Eat Wheaties, but I hope that road kind of leads us into some other places too. So I just finished co-writing something that I'm not going to direct, which was freeing in a lot of ways, a drama, which was very dark material compared to Wheaties, which was a good segue, I think, creatively. But I think I'm happy to jump back into something a little bit lighter now.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and I'm just, we're in Los Angeles, my family and I, but all of our families back in Canada. So that's been the biggest challenge, is that we haven't been. I don't think we've ever gone more than 3 or 4 months without going to Canada or having our family come down here.
Sure.
So that's the biggest thing. I'm hoping to get to see family in the next couple months, I hope.
Oh man, we hope that for you too, for sure. I know it's been tough, like all over the place. You've had two scenarios. Either one, you haven't gotten to see your family for a year, or two, you've seen too much of your family for a year.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
Either way, there are some seriously tough situations. Well, I have no doubt that from what you guys have put together of the film, you guys working together, clearly you all have made something special. I have no doubt that this film will lead to other new, interesting opportunities. I now feel the need to get the book, read the book, and then also see the film.
That's something I'm looking forward to, because what was interesting is that nobody, I think, on the set. I mean, Dan, did you read the book? I think at some point you leafed through it.
Oh yeah.
Did you read? Yeah. You did. I don't think there was Dave. Did you? I don't think you did. So Dan might have been Dan might have been the only one other than me and Michael Kuhn, who had been on set a bunch, that even knew that it was based on a book. But I'm hoping that this brings a lot of new eyeballs to what is a brilliant novel. I mean, he's a lot of his books have been incredibly well reviewed. This one is the most fun. He's got a new book coming out that's just so brilliant. And actually, this is another one of his books. We are still tornadoes that he co-wrote with Susan Mullen, who they did something really cool. It's also told through letters, but a boy and a girl, and so they each wrote their respective characters' letters. I hope people. I really hope people do that, Q, that they read the book and see the movie, because there's a lot of connective tissue, and there's a lot of fun also about opening up a story that's really so focused on one character and one character's words that getting to know Michael and having him love the film the way that he does also makes me feel like I accomplished what I set out to accomplish.
That's gotta feel good.
Yeah.
I also think a really beautiful thing about the conversion from the book to the film script was that in most cases, the classic line is, "Oh, the book was so much better. They left so much out. You got to read the book. You can't see the movie. It doesn't do it justice." But the thing was that because the Locklear letters was all just one character writing letters to people, you didn't see the other side of it. And so Scott was able to not only take this wonderful book, but he was able to expand on it and add all kinds of new characters and expand on the characters that he was writing to that you got a piece of, but you got to now see the whole character in the movie. So I think it's something really cool that if you read the book first, then you see the movie, it won't take away from the book.
Sure.
The movie will only add to the book, which I think is really unique and cool. That was something when I first read the book and then coupled it with the script was just really sold me on it. It was like, this is just extraordinary. So hopefully
they're like spiritual siblings as opposed to like a remake of one or the other. They're like kind of the same thing, but told in kind of different mediums, different ways, with tweaks to the story, changes, if you will. I think that sounds awesome. That is definitely, as someone who is, I don't know if my stacks of VHS tapes.
Do you like Q? Do you like movies?
As a little, I may have a problem. As someone who definitely watches the film first, usually, and then sometimes will go back and read the book. I know that that's often the problem is, oh, this was left out of the movie actually, or this was added in, and that's totally wrong for the character, or, something crazy. So I agree with you. I love the idea that you were able to take something that, in its raw form is not really something that would translate to film correctly. And you were able to like expand on it, and you were kind of able to give additional life to it instead of kind of replacing it, so to speak. So that had to be great. And I'm sure Michael, that's part of the reason he was thrilled about it was, it's not like you're changing his baby. You're making it more, you're making it bigger and more grand. So that's awesome. I can only imagine as a creative what that would feel like to kind of see your creation take on a new additional life.
Well, I've done it. I've adapted twice that films that I've adapted from as a producer. So books that I've chosen, to adapt as opposed to being hired to adapt. And, that anxiety of taking someone else's word, because as a writer, as a screenwriter, I mean, I know the feeling all too well of being, pushed away by the director and losing control. And it's kind of what got me into producing, so that at least, the only person who could fire me is me.
Sure.
But I do know that feeling of, fear of, I remember the first thing that I wrote that got turned into a movie. I remember that they sent a copy of it, and I was scared to turn it on.
Sure.
You never know how it's gonna. I was on set like 2 days or 3 days, so but I certainly wasn't involved at any point. But both times, well, the first time actually, the writer, I reached out. It was a writer who wrote under a pseudonym, which was very strange. I didn't know who the writer was. I didn't know if the writer was male or female. the pseudonym, the pen name is Ingarash Wolf, so it was a female name, but it turned out it was a he. Michael Redhill is his name. But I remember when I'd been in touch with his agent because I optioned the book, and it also took years to develop and get it made. And I remember I remember at one point I had sent the agent a copy of the script, saying if the writer wants to read it, this is where it is right now, just because I get that feeling of what are they going to do to my baby. And I remember the scariest email I got was about a week into production. The agent emailed saying, well, the writer is going to come to set. And I was like, oh fuck.
This is so
this could go really well or really badly. And he came with his kids and his girlfriend.
Oh, shit.
It was
no pressure.
Oh yeah, and I brought him into my trailer and showed him some dailies, and he loves what he saw. I was like, this huge sigh of relief, just this feeling, and I got to know him differently than Michael, because Michael I knew before I even started adapting it, but the film was already halfway done shooting when I met the other Mike. His name's Michael as well.
Sure.
So it's scary. It's scary, but both wanted to work with me again, so that's a good sign, I guess.
That is a good sign. Now I know Galo will probably be wrapping us here soon, but I do have a question, and this is something that I was thinking about, and now I definitely want to ask, especially because of the adaptation, because of the mention of Nicolas Cage. And this question goes to all three of you. Is there a dream, something that Scott, maybe you would like to adapt? Is there a book that you're like, one day, like that's my holy grail? Or Dan or David, is there a dream franchise or project that you would like to be involved with? Or if you don't have that, is there a dream actor that you're like, one day I want to work with this person? Like we're going to set expectations for 2021. I want to put it out into the universe right now. So from the three of you, is there one of those three things that you guys want in your future film careers? I know it's
Dan,
tough.
You go first, Dan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's kind of vague, but I, we've talked about it throughout with me. Hockey has always been a huge part of my life, and although there are some good hockey movies, like Miracle and plenty of Slapshot and some great hockey movies that really capture the essence of the team and the bonding and all the stuff like that. Even Mighty Ducks and everything like that. I think that there's never been anything that truly captures how violent and fast and skilled it is. And I think it'd be really cool to weave a narrative around that could also have, with the technology of cameras and stuff like that now these days. I actually personal assisted for a film director for a while who invented something he calls roller dolly, where he's a hockey player. He made all the Crank movies with Jason Statham, and he just carries a camera, and he rollerblades and holds on to the side of the car while the car's going 40 and throws the camera in. And you could have something like that filming on ice skates in an ice rink with a hockey thing. I think could be extraordinary to really show people how amazing it really is. I think because it's not accessible to a lot of people, I've shown the game to so many people that have immediately fallen in love with it, just because they'd never been exposed to it before. And I think it'd be cool to create something that could show that experience to a lot of people. And Leonardo DiCaprio.
Perfect. Leonardo DiCaprio starring in your quintessential hockey film.
Yeah, he'll be the head coach.
I love it. I'm 1000% here for it. David or Scott, what do you guys got?
I'm working on a project right now with a musician that has awesome music. And she's kind of a thing in her hometown. And she also went through a bunch. She went through this car accident. And so I've been writing a movie about her life and how her music actually intertwines with her life. And that's something totally different than I've done my whole life personally. And so I've been really intrigued about that sort of thing, about telling somebody's story about their actual life and doing it justice. But at the same time, it's tough because you only got 90 minutes to 100 minutes to go through it all. So that's been kind of a sort of thing, something I've been working on that excites me to do something a little different and tell that narrative while using her music to tell her own life story. That's quite tragic yet uplifting in other ways. So I've been kind of working on that. And then, I'm going to so name drop, but I was at the Producers Guild Awards and shook Brad Pitt's hand. And now I'm like, I could see this working. I could see us working together.
We could be friends. We could work together.
We could be buddies. So I know Brad listens to Project Nerd. So I just like, if you're out there, Brad, like, watch Eat Wheaties, and hit me up.
Yeah, we'll definitely, no problem. Here, I'll give you that intro. Hey, Brad, it's me, Q. From PN, but also from our best friendship. David here is a really great guy. I can vouch for him. He shook your hand, and you should definitely work with him. No problem, for sure. There Excellent. You go. You got it.
It's gonna happen. Right. It's gonna happen. You heard it here.
We have that kind of.
You guys are the best. You guys are the best.
I know. I'll take your award later. Like I said. All right, Scott. What do you have? Those both sound awesome. What is kind of your dream thing?
Good question. I mean, there's been one project that I've been working on for as long as I started working on it probably 12 years ago. Wow. It's actually one of the books up there. It's based on a true story called Alive and Kicking, about women who never played sports and how their kids playing sports got them active and playing soccer, and they start this women's soccer league.
I'm in.
Yeah, it's such a different kind of sports movie. It's got the underdog sort of bad news bears mentality, but it's about women who never played sports, and it was set at a time when right before Title IX is when these women grew up. And so they never had the opportunity to, but learning the lessons of sports, which I think, we all learn, whether you love sports or not. I think, if you play sports, you get life lessons. And so these women learning these lessons as adults, and also playing against, girls who've been playing sports their whole lives. It's just a story that I've been trying to get to the screen for a long time. I'm hoping that this year becomes an opportunity to get it there. It's written by Harvey Arrington, who's a New York Times sports writer, brilliant writer, and he got drawn into this because his wife was one of these women who was playing in this league. Man. Yeah, and so that's obviously I'd love to do a hockey movie, Dan. I think that would be ideal. Yeah. But sports movies just in general,
Ontario.
Sports movies certainly have a special place in my heart. Galo, I know you're a baseball fan. I worked in baseball for a long time. I was a bat boy for the Expos.
Oh wow, awesome.
Yeah. So telling a sports story is huge, right? Like when a movie's done well. Rookie of the Year, you're a Cubs fan? Is that
Yeah. Yep. That was a good one.
Yeah. So
it was a fun one.
Yes, well, that's it. Sports movies have to do one or two things. They got to be, because like a movie like Sugar, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that's like, it's so. I worked in baseball, and that is the true story of being a minor leaguer, particularly for for people coming from the Dominican Republic. It's that story is the real story. It's incredibly well documented, like as a piece of fiction that's really grounded. Sure. And then there's the fun movies,
sure.
Rookie of the Year,
or your major leagues.
Major leagues, yeah.
And lot.
Well, yeah. It's funny. I don't know if you guys have watched Ted Lasso, but people seem to, really love that. And it's got a lot.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's great.
So that fantasy side of it is, I think what's cool about Alive and Kicking is that it's got a little bit of both, and it's grounded in reality too. Like it's a bad news bear story of women who never played sports, but most of whom were really, were athletic, and learning to play it's such a thing that we can all connect with, like that joy of like, for the first time when you suck and you get, and you're picked last, or nobody wants you on their team, and then to get to that point where you can do the thing that you try to do. I mean, Dan's a great, incredible hockey player. You watch, he's got grace. For me, when I was a kid, I grew up in Montreal. Hockey was everything, but I had it in my head. I knew what I wanted to do, and it's my body wouldn't. I didn't have that coordination. Yeah, but I forced myself. I used to drive out in the coldest days when I knew no one would be at the rink, and I'd take slap shots just to get balance. And that part of sports, I think, is something that that I love, that part of the story, and it's true. That's what these women kind of went through. So hopefully this year.
I love that. I'm sold. Like that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would 1000% watch that. Just the description alone, I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds, it's
in for that.
Totally, absolutely.
We've got close before.
I'll call up my buddy Brad and my buddy Leo.
Yes.
Yes, they'll play the husbands and then let them be the supporting guys for a change.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Well, Gallo, I'll pass it back to you. That was great. I love that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that was amazing. You guys are really a cool group of guys, and I'm really glad that we got to do this today because it's been for us as well. We went through this adjustment at Project Nerd where we became basically podcast and streaming based because of the pandemic. Our biggest thing originally was convention, both participation and production, running panels and stuff like that. And the thing I wanted to bring always, and what we had the opportunity to do with the recast, is to bring that panel feel, that convention panel feel to our guests where, we lead and we intro and we say bye, but the meat of the podcast is our guests talking, about their passions and about themselves and about what they look forward to. And that's, you guys were amazing with that. And we really appreciate having you guys. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me and Q. Before we go out, what I want to do is just give you guys an opportunity to tell the people how they can learn more about you, your companies, and plug yourselves in the movie. And let's start with David.
Well, first of all, obviously we're all on Eat Wheaties, the film that's coming out April 30th. You can find on all the platforms we're at Eat Wheaties Film. You can find me, my production company is Film Prods. That's PHILLM Prods. And that's on the platforms. And then me personally, I'm at DJ_PHLIPS. And yeah, hit me up.
Nice.
Dan,
Scott?
Dan.
Both
Dan,
of you go at the same time. Are you ready? And
go. Dan, where do we crash the wedding?
Yeah. October 23rd, but you're gonna have to find the location.
Perfect. Just somewhere.
Yeah. I'm not crazy active on social media, but I'm on there as D Webb Gems, DWEBBGEMS. We'll be having a lot of stuff on the movie, but like Dave said, we'd really love it if you went to Eat Wheaties Film on any of your social media platforms of preference and check it out. And it's coming out on April 30th. Hopefully in lots of theaters and on demand. So, go find it, check it out. And like you guys said, if you want to see the movie and read the book and have us back to talk about it again, I'm sure we'd love to do that. That would be great. So thank you guys so much.
Right now, I'm following on social media because I definitely want to stay up to date on the film.
Absolutely. All right, Scott, you get to go last, buddy.
I wish I could say you saved the best for last, but I'm not on social media. I think it's kind of what drew me to this character. This movie is, the thing that we sparked the story from is that it's a guy who's never been on social media and he has to get on for this college reunion and it starts causing havoc in his life. So I think that might happen to me if I get on. But I'm really excited that hopefully your audience will find out a little bit about the movie through this and the trailer comes out probably next week. I'm not sure exactly when, but April 30th, Eat Wheaties, and there'll be lots of fun stuff on social media through the Twitter and Facebook, and hopefully you can connect with it there. And I'd love to come back and talk about the specifics of the movie, whether you guys like it.
Yes.
And I love how specific your reviews are. And, I think as a writer, more than a director, I think as a writer, you want to hear the shit that people don't like. That's really how things get better. When you're a director, it's already too late. the movie's made, so it might hurt a little more. But
so here's the thing, Scott. If we bring Dan and Dave back and you don't hear from us, you don't know.
feel it. Fair enough. But you know, the some of my favorite reviews of my previous work were some negative reviews where I kind of, you know, you kind of know when you finish something what's working about it and what's not. And you know, when people write eloquently about the things that they didn't love or make, because a lot of times, you know, this movie, what was the first cut? The first cut was like almost an hour and 50 minutes, I think. You know, the running time now is 88 or 89 minutes. So, you know, there's things that you have answers to in some ways. You wish it's a communication of, oh, I wish you'd explored more of, you know, for us, you know, Danielle Brooks's character, the waitress character. And yeah, we did explore, you know, more of it, but we didn't have time, you know, in the way that we cut the, you know, story is king and you got to kind of get to the things that you need to get to or flow. And but that kind of, you know, critical look and even at the negative things that people have to say are sometimes really enlightening. And so I love the way you guys look at movies. Yeah,
don't worry about it, Scott.
Well,
we'll just
appreciate that.
Snyder cut it later.
There is a 5-hour cut of Eat Wheaties that exists somewhere. We're gonna break it down in a mini series. That's awesome. Can I ask, have you guys tweeted at Wheaties yet, and to see if are they in support of this film using their brand name?
They are. Thankfully, we reached out to them really early on, you know, because it was something that we wanted to at least, because I mean, I don't want to get too much into what the Eat Wheaties is about the film, but it's not a thing that I think goes against what their brand is, and I think it's fun, and I think it's a lot of things that they would be looking at. We thought that they would like, and we were right. They've actually, it's not just, you know, General Mills plus the University of Pennsylvania, which is the, you know, college that that Elizabeth Banks really went to. They were both so incredibly supportive, and they are still supportive. So Wheaties is actually, we're in the midst of making a Tony Hale Wheaties box.
I was just about to ask. I was like, so is there a Tony Hale Wheaties box coming?
We're working on it. They've been so great with us. So hopefully that'll be done before the film is ready to launch, and hopefully social media will get some fun out of that. And same thing with University of Pennsylvania. Like, you know, they sent us all this swag that we got to use in the movie, and Wheaties sent us boxes. So we've been very lucky that people have, you know, connected with the story, because I think it's one of those things where when you see it or read it you know, we sent them scripts that you see that even though this is a kind of guy who gets in trouble, his intentions are good.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Well, I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much.
All right, so Eat Wheaties film, correct?
Yes.
Eat Wheaties film, and this was amazing. Dan, David, Scott, best of luck with the film. We are super excited for you guys. We are going to get out there and tell everybody about it. We're going to share it, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you guys back and do, you know, a review session of the movie, because it sounds amazing. And you know, wish you guys all the best of luck. Want to thank you again. And there you have it, nerds. We've gone into the film nerdum with David Phillips, Dan Webb, and Scott. I don't want to butcher your last name, so you got to say it, buddy.
Abramovitch.
All right, Abramovitch.
Boom.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This has been the podcast Recast. Bye.